which is the largest food service provider in the world. In short, we feed college students. So that's retail food courts, dining halls, catering services on college campuses, about 270 across the United States. And we have a really interesting business challenge, which is that we are currently feeding two demographics. We have millennial juniors and seniors, and we have Gen Z freshmen and sophomores. And so that's really caused us to dig deep into the differences between these two groups. And we found things to be so fascinating that we actually rebranded our company around the expectations of Generation Z. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to really focus on the dynamics of this group that makes it unique. And I'm going to try to be as relevant as I can across any function. So even though I'm in marketing, and that's where my lens is, I know I've got a variety of backgrounds in the room. Where are my marketers, just so that I know how many of you there are? A lot. Good. Okay, so I've got some marketing stuff toward the end of the presentation, but I'm going to try to make this relevant, whether you're in marketing or human resources, recruiting, some very interesting dynamics there, or even if you're just trying to deal with your Gen Z sons and daughters at home. So, something for everyone. Let's go. First rule, Gen Z are not millennials. And this is really important because many brands are still putting Gen Z and millennials into the same overall category for the youth demographic. It's very interesting. The truth is that Gen Z are typically either extreme versions or polar opposites of millennials. What I'm going to do, just to make sure that this presentation is really effective at contrasting the two groups, is I'm actually going to start with a handful of millennial slides, just so that we can all agree, so we'll just sort of get on the same page in terms of what we're talking about when we say the word millennial. Also referred to Generation Y, as you can see from the Time magazine cover, also described as the me generation. This will become apparent very quickly. So they are born 1980 to 1995, and believe it or not, they are 22 to 36. So that's really important to consider. Why are brands so fascinated with them? It's because they command $1.7 trillion worth of purchasing power. And they're a very large generation. There's about 80 million of them. They're optimists. Nearly half of them believe that the country's best days are ahead of it, versus 42% of Gen Xers and 44% of baby boomers. They socialize with their parents. 85% of millennials report that their best friend is either one or both of their parents. And they are values-driven. So more than half of them actively seek out products from companies that support social causes that they care about. And 70% of them report that they've actually bought less bottled water because of the negative impact on the environment. They really value personalization. I think many people know this. It's about freedom and choice for these guys, but also, remember that me generation, they expect companies to pay attention to their individual needs. And they're diverse, right? They're more diverse than the adult population. About 43% of them are non-Caucasian. And finally, they've come of age along with the internet. So millennials are the first generation to fully embrace social media, and we call them tech savvy. But a defining difference is that we call Gen Z tech immerse or tech native. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So with that, let's meet Gen Z, otherwise referred to sometimes as the new millennial. So Generation Z is born 1995 to 2010. They are aged 6 to 21. And they command about $44 billion worth of spending power, not bad for that age, based on an average weekly allowance of $16.90. Not bad, right? Better than my paper route. Who's got Gen Zers at home? All right, you all know what I'm talking about. But unlike the millennials, they have been shaped by 9/11 and the Great Recession. And in spite of that very handsome average allowance, 1 in 4 are actually living in poverty. So as a result, unlike our optimists, they're actually focused and realistic. Right? They've grown up in this age of school shootings and unrest, and they've witnessed, importantly, the struggles of their millennial siblings and counterparts. Okay, they're very worried about the economy. And a lot of this stems from job insecurity from their parents, for example. And a lot of this has to do with the local violence, school shootings in their towns, and general uncertainty with respect to local and community and world violence. Okay. So these guys are savers. You know, those millennials, you're always reading these articles about how much they spend when they go out to eat. These guys are a whole different animal, no pun intended, with the piggy bank. 58% of 13 to 17-year-old teens are already saving money. So for the marketers in the room, these guys are really going to demand value from us. They're already working. I love this statistic. Harvard Business Review reports that 70% of Gen Zers are already working entrepreneurial jobs. They're teaching piano, they're DJing on the side, they're selling merchandise on eBay. 55% of them say that their parents, Gen Xers, are pressure them to get a job while they're in high school. And these guys want to work, but they don't just want jobs. They want jobs that matter. 60% of them are really driven to wanting to take a job that's going to make an impact on the world versus 39% of millennials. And they really crave creativity. 60% of them say they expect to have 6 careers by the time they're 30. Not jobs. Careers, right? When we say millennials on steroids, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And they're really drawn to opportunities that provide creative outlets for artistic expression. Okay, these guys really are diverse. So we're not talking about non-Caucasian anymore. We're talking about a 50% increase in multiracial use since the year 2000. Diversity is in their DNA, and they really embrace the world with this blind inclusivity, which is really, really beautiful. They see themselves as part of a whole, and in fact, they seek out communities to help form their identity. If you think millennials are all about sustainability, I'm here to tell you, you haven't seen anything yet. 76% of Gen Zers report that they are actively worried about the planet. And even though they are categorized as frugal, they are willing to pay actually much higher prices for products that will help reverse man's impact on the planet, in their view. Okay, 26% of 16 to 19-year-olds volunteer. So anybody who's in HR or recruiting, get ready. These guys are going to make great team members. And they live with multiple generations. So 28% of them are currently living in a household with different generations. You've got grandparents who have moved back in, millennial siblings who have never left the nest, and they're getting less time at home than the millennials did. So where do you think they're getting their questions answered? The internet. Really nice byproduct of this is they've developed a really beautiful respect for authority and appreciation for the wisdom of their elders. Again, I think this really speaks to the promise of this group in terms of potential components of the overall talent pool. I think they're going to lend a lot of wisdom and the ability to communicate well across different generations. Okay, they're less active. Those of you who have Gen Z boys at home, 51% say that gaming is their #1 source of entertainment. And they are the biggest foodies. So these guys have a really strong interest in cooking, much stronger than the millennials. Of course, along those same lines as the sustainability preferences, they're really interested in where their food comes from and buying locally. They enjoy authentic global cuisines and mashups. And it will probably come as no surprise to you that they are constantly taking pictures of their food. They are open to brand messages, which is good for us, but they communicate only in snack-sized portions, and I'm talking about little snacks. They expect brands to act like a friend. Remember, they're really looking for safety. They really want to feel safe. And so, if they're not sharing your brand, if they're not talking about you, you're not even on their radar. You don't even exist to these guys. You remember the kind of the older mindset that, oh, we don't want to be on social media. It's bad for the brand. What if somebody says something wrong? Those days have to be over, because if they're not talking about you, you are totally off their radar. Brands like Taco Bell, that's somebody that we really look up to in terms of how it engages with this audience. Right? Not only are they first to all the emerging platforms, first to Vine, first to Snapchat, first to Periscope, but the way that they communicate is really unique. And if you take a look at even the Twitter page for Taco Bell, you will see something very different from the way that that brand displays signage in its restaurants, where it's talking to all of us. Okay, so this one's fun. As a marketer, they communicate in images. So the research suggests that this is because of privacy concerns. They use emojis, emoticons to facilitate private conversations. And it's been, again, really, really fun as a marketer to think about how can I say more with an emoji and less with a sentence. So let me just kind of summarize what we've learned so far, just in terms of communicating. So whether you're a marketer or you're just trying to communicate, one thing you want to do, you have to acknowledge their diversity. They really expect you to depict them as diverse. If you're showing them and there's not a kind of a diverse, real nature to your imagery, you are totally off the mark. Okay, you want to communicate in images. Very important is communicating value. And if you can attach a social cause that they care about, you're in. So 4 takeaways for you. Now, I want to get into technology. And it's really the technology piece that really defines the choices that we've made around our brand. So it'll be a good lead-in for the case study. And it certainly is even more fascinating, I think, to really get deep into this. So they've always had the internet and social media, number one. And in fact, 44% of them say as they enter their teenage years and they're looking to apply to college, they go to a university's social media page, whatever's out there, whether it's Facebook, whatever it is that university is using for information about that college. They do not go to the university's webpage. And for half of them, that information actually influences where they decide to apply. So very interesting behavior. Now, where does this come from? Well, they're being gifted with gaming devices between the age of 4 and 7, and digital music devices, e-readers, tablets between 8 and 11. So that's what's kind of got them started on this path. Now, these guys are really smart. They have really grown up understanding the consequences of their digital actions. And as a result, they're sharing a lot less personal information online. In fact, 57% of them say that they've rethought a post that they wanted to make out of privacy concerns. And this is really what's fueling the demand for platforms like Snapchat and fake Instagram accounts. If you think about it, it's, what's said today is toast tomorrow. This is very appealing to this group. All right. These guys multitask across 5 digital screens versus 2 for millennials. So that blows most people away over the age of 21. So you can see them here. 91% of them sleep with their devices. This is the age of the selfie, right? This is their world. It's an endless circle of photo snapping and posting and commenting that has become the new social norm for these guys. And as a result, they're constantly drawn in with these immediate social media posts and texts, and they really feel a need to respond instantly. So there are a lot of interesting medical studies now that are coming about that are concerned that this anxiety that's being created around the immediacy of these social media demands are potentially harmful to their health. So that's something to keep in mind. One movement that has started to happen is called digital detox. Right? 59% of them absolutely know that they spend too much time online. And 24 million people in China have actually said that they're addicted to the internet, and one gentleman actually reported cutting his arm off. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's interesting. So one of the movements that's been really created, how do we, for a period, right, not for an extended period, but for a short period, take a look at camping and wearable-free dinners and deviceless sleepovers and yoga as ways to extract these guys from their devices. So that is a trend that's emerging. But for us, as we took a look at all this research, and we looked at something that the Harvard School of Public Health talked about, is that we really feel that this overconnectedness to the devices is producing a generation that is unable to relate to each other. Right? Teachers report that these guys are unaware of their surroundings, right? Unable to give directions, overly reliant on their devices. So we look at our clients and say, how can we help them solve their problems? Because our clients, the universities, want to graduate high-performing kids who can interview and get jobs and prosper in the economy and be successful. That's what we've done, and Harvard describes this as this solution as promoting high-intensity relationships. So let me just give you this really quickly. This was the strategic positioning for our brand case study. We wanted to take the flexibility and the global resources that we have that's unique to our company, and we wanted to target them to this Generation Z soundbite, this over-connected yet under-related soundbite. And so what we did is we pulled out 3 pillars and said, hey, our dining operations are the center, right, of our campuses. They're the places that every student and a faculty member and alum is invited to come, accessible to everyone. Let's bring these people together through food. Second pillar, investment. Right? Investment's not something that we talk about in the marketplace and really actively get credit for, but why not strategically use our investment to create spaces that can be social spaces, that can be magnets that proactively draw students together. So we're not saying, come to the dining hall and get your lunch. We're saying, come to this space, hang out, charge your phone, put it down, charge your phone, maybe play a little something that interacts with a friend, and provide some other environmental activities that really attract and promote engagement within the student community. And then third, the cuisine, of course, it always goes back to the food. We want to proactively, really ratchet up the standard on this in terms of really looking at nourishing and healthful standards. Remember, we're talking about a generation that is inactive for the most part. So we want to really educate them on the benefits of healthy lifestyle and eating. So this translated into a brand story slide that I'll just walk through with you quickly, and then I'll show you the new visual identity. If college is about sharing big ideas and discovering new people, then our brand, Chartwell's, is the center of a vibrant academic life. And we are chefs, and we do feed students, but really, most importantly, we're interaction facilitators. So our mission is really to draw people together over food. We take all these resources that we bring to the table and we say that our new mission is to be the place where hungry minds gather. So a new slogan for us, promoting gathering, this idea of promoting human interaction over food. Doesn't mean that we can't have a little technology in there. I'll show you that in just a minute. But it's really the idea of better preparing students in the future, because there's a human piece that they're just not getting by being overly reliant on their devices. So this is the new mark. Chartwell's where hungry minds gather. The circular mark here is really meant to represent interlocking people, right? A nice contemporary look. The colors represent diversity, and the circular nature of it is designed to represent forward motion. So we thought that this was a really great way to take that brand promise and really represent ourselves as deeply committed to addressing the unique needs of this generation. Just quickly, I won't dwell on this too much, but for those of you who do a lot of work with teams and internal work, we assigned a meaning to each color as an internal rallying cry. You know, it was a way to really get all of our associates, we call our employees associates, so all of our associates to really buy into this. And so if you're a chef, for example, you're really going to identify with this green for cuisine, right? Green is one of our values. It's the color of freshness, nature, and growth. You know, you can kind of really get into that. We really found that that was a way that every one of our associates could really relate to this new brand and really live it. So with this fresh new color palette. So that is the new look. And I do have a video, but I think I am going to skip it in the interest of time. Well, no, maybe we'll play it, actually. We'll play the video.
Have you heard? Chartwell's Higher Education has a fresh new look. That's right. Chartwell's has a new logo, a new slogan, a new brand identity. And this new brand identity will position us for the new generation of college students. Who is this generation? It's Generation Z, replacing millennials on our college and university campuses. With its extreme affinity for technology, Generation Z has been described as overconnected yet underrelated. You may even have some of these guys at home. Experts suggest that brands promoting high-intensity relationships would be the key to preparing our Gen Z students for the future. What does Chartwell's do naturally to promote student relationships? Well, our dining programs bring people together and serve as centers of academic life on the campuses we serve. Our investment creates these spaces, and our cuisine nourishes and inspires. Said another way, if college is about sharing big ideas and discovering new people, then Chartwell's is the center of a vibrant academic life. We are chefs, interaction facilitators, and food enthusiasts with a knack for drawing people together. Through our cuisine, community, talent, global resources, and flexibility, we have the power to nourish and inspire. Our new mission is to be the place where hungry minds gather. The Where Hungry Minds Gather slogan uniquely speaks to Generation Z and positions Chartwell's as thought leaders with respect to preparing this new generation for the future. The circular mark expresses the concept of gathering through interlocking people. The shape is clean and contemporary, representing freshness and forward motion. The colors reinforce diversity, and there's meaning behind it. Blue for people, the color of trust, confidence, and intelligence. Green for cuisine, the color of freshness, nature, and growth. Teal for community, the color of communication, energy, and creativity. Magenta for culture, the color of universal harmony. Orange for ideas, the color of enthusiasm, mental activity, and success. Our new mission is to be the place where hungry minds gather, to nourish and inspire, to be the dining services provider for our new generation and beyond. We are so excited to share this with you, and we look forward to building the new Chartwell's Higher Education brand together. Are you ready?
Okay, so just in case you missed anything, it was all summarized in there. And this is what we played when we did our regional rollouts internally to get the associates excited about this. So I'm just going to run through a couple tactical examples of how we executed this, and then we'll have, I think, a couple minutes for questions. So in our external communications, you can see deliberately the imagery here. It's all students gathering. Whenever you see students making a connection with each other, there is food in the visual and the devices are down. Same thing on the website. You can see the brand colors across the bottom. Just another example of our dining portal. Again, students gathering over food, devices are down. In our social media, we have, for anyone who has this challenge, we have 270 entrepreneurial operations. Everybody wants something different. We had to find a way to give a variety of choices that they could use in their social media activities that would tie to the mission, but not stifle creativity. So we provided a number of images as backgrounds on social media pages, and we were able to give some breadth of variety to our internal groups while still staying true to the mission. We're, of course, owning that Where Hungry Minds Gather hashtag. In our trade show booth, our trade show is all about gathering around a large table. So really staying true to the brand in our execution. I have one more example that I will tell you about in terms of the technology that we're using. I mentioned that we're not abandoning technology, but we're using something called Rockbot that gives students the opportunity to customize the music that plays in our dining operations. And our student here just chose a song that he wants to hear when he enjoys his meal today. So with that, I want to thank you. Do we have 1 minute for questions?
2 questions I bet.
Fabulous.
One in the front.
Hi, I'm Sherry Novick of a branding and experience design agency called Novick Race. I had a question. You started to answer it maybe with the last slide, but this is a, let's say B2B. This is your dining service brand, correct? That,
right.
You know, it's the facilities or purchasing people at the, that's who your customer is, correct?
That's the one who signs the check.
Right, and so the students, do they ever see this brand in any manifestation of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we do is, we're not advertising this brand, the story, and in fact, in about half of our accounts, we don't even use the Chartwell's logo. In many cases, we operate under the university's brand name as the dining arm of the institution. Exactly. But our sales pitch to the B2B community, to that president or to that CFO or that VP of auxiliary services, is that we know these guys better than anybody else, and we're going to prepare them. And therefore, there are all these things that we're going to do, like this Rockbot technology and all these other things in the way that we communicate, that make our offering different from the rest.
One more question.
I'm pretty loud, so.
Bring it, Ben. Bring it.
Okay, so between the millennial generation and Generation Z, do you see the difference of, are they spending money dining out on campus or off campus? Like, what's the difference between those two?
So it's a little bit early. We don't have a lot of data because they just got onto campus, but what we definitely see, we see millennials eating off campus all the time. I mean, millennials love to spend money in restaurants. There's no question about it. With Gen Z, we are starting to make a more concerted effort to promote value in the meal plans, and that seems to be gaining some traction. It's all about that value message, I'm sure there will be more data to come on that.
Thank you, Patty, very
You're welcome.
much. That was
Thanks, guys.
Fascinating. Fascinating.